Hi, my name is Elliot and welcome to my very much needed updated paper fursuit tutorial. The last tutorial I made was in October 2023 and I officially posted it in like January 2024 and it's super old and outdated and it kind of sucks. So this is my new one. It's fully voiced over and more in depth, and I'm hoping it helps you guys out a lot more. For this tutorial, please do not copy my designs. Please be creative and make your own. It's really discouraging when my whole tutorial is made for people to be creative. Like this, I want people to make paper fursuits in their own way. I don't want people to just use my ideas and my style or whatever to make their paper fursuit. Like, I usually make dog paper fursuits. You can make a cat paper fursuit. You can make a dragon paper fursuit. Like, you don't have to make a dog paper fursuit. Do whatever is right for your persona and your character. Another thing I would like to say is some tips for making paper fursuits. I give a lot in my tutorial, but one major tip is to be patient. Don't rush through your paper fursuit or else it won't turn out good and you're gonna get frustrated. That's pretty much all I have. Again, I apologize for the long tutorial. I just really wanted to go in depth, and I legit said I would make this like this summer or last summer, and I did not get to it until now. So I apologize for that again, but I'm finally, I'm recording this being about like halfway done. So hopefully I can finish it really soon, and thank you guys for watching my videos, and thank you for 100K on TikTok. I don't know if my YouTube audience knows about this, but I did hit that on TikTok like a while ago. But I appreciate it. You guys are great. Let's get to it. To start making your paper fursuit, you will need a ruler, a writing utensil, some scissors, some scotch tape. I preferably use the clear kind, something to cut with like an X-Acto knife, and then some cardstock. Make sure it's cardstock. Don't use regular printer paper. It's not going to be able to support everything. To start building the bucket head base of your paper fursuit, lay 3 pieces of cardstock lengthwise like this. You can use 3 to 4. I personally use 3, but you'll just end up measuring it to your head size later anyways. So then I'm going to tape the pieces of cardstock together. Make sure they're lined up. Make sure that all the pieces of cardstock are straight and they're not gonna be angled any differently, and they're pretty aligned. Now I'm going to tape the base into a cylinder like this. Make sure it fits snug on your head, not too tight, not too loose. Then I cut the extra off and move on to the next step. Then I cut 2 medium-sized strips like this. They will be the support for the top of your head base. I line it up by overlapping a tiny bit with the cylinder base from before, then I tape it on. Put the entire cylinder around your head with the strap from before facing forward. Take the strap to the other side of the cylinder and pull it tight. Keep holding the strap in place to secure it to the base. Take the other strip and do the same thing. You don't have to put it on your head this time, just pull it over the strip from before. Tape everything together. Right now I'm cutting small slits in the corners of the base that stick out. This is optional, but if you want a rounder base, then I'd recommend it. I tape the slits together so the corners aren't sticking out. Now I'm going to find the center of the base with a ruler and trace a line down the middle. I mark the line down with the center of my writing utensil for the eyes later. Now I'm going to cut a small angle in the back of the head base. This is so it doesn't bump into your neck or touch your back. Make sure you don't cut this too high or it'll make your head look weird and unfinished later on. I cut it too far for this head base. Just make sure it's even and doesn't go too high. It should probably only go about 1/2 to 1 inch away from the original end of the base. Ignore how my base and camera angle completely changes. I messed up my first attempt and had to remake the base. This is me drawing the eyes and measuring to make sure they're the same size and width apart. I usually measure about 1/2 to 1 inches for the space between the eyes. For this head I did 2 to 3, which is too much. Don't make this mistake because it'll be harder to see out of later on if you make the 2 eyes farther apart than they need to be. Yeah, I learned this the hard way, guys. Now I use my sharp object / box cutter or scissors or whatever you want to cut out the eyes. This shouldn't be too hard, and it usually doesn't take me too long, so yeah, just make sure you cut them evenly and cut more if you need to or less. Oh, and this is another reason why cardstock is much better than regular paper. With regular paper, your head base would probably be full of crinkles and folds by now. With cardstock, it just pops back into place if you fold it or anything. My recording didn't freaking save, so ignore how I already had to have the muzzle shape cut out. But you're going to trace your muzzle shape on a piece of paper like this. This is what I want the side profile of my paper fursuit to be. For Sunspot, which is the head I was making right now, his snout is shorter, and it's more of a cat-like snout because he's a cheetah dog mix. Now I'm going to trace the base side profile onto another sheet of paper to duplicate it. Now that I have the two duplicated pieces, I'm going to tape them onto the front of the base. I usually tape them to have a curve like this, so it's wider at the muzzle and eyebrows, and closer together where the nose bridge and eyes are. Now I take a blank sheet of cardstock and trace / mark where the eyes are. I take this sheet of paper and try to match the shape of the muzzle. I sadly haven't found an exact way to do this, so most of the time I just guess and adjust as I go. The shape should vaguely look like a vase or an hourglass and be tapered in the middle and then go straight down to the bottom.
Now cut it out and line it up with the front of the base in between the two muzzle pieces and the eyes.
Feel free to adjust and cut it to make it fit as much as you need or fit less or just the fit. Now take this piece and start taping it to each side of the muzzle. I start at the top and make my way down. Now I have the basic muzzle shape complete. Next, I take a blank sheet of cardstock and draw the shape of the cheek. Like the muzzle, cut it out and duplicate it. Tape it onto the side, then grab the other cheek piece and tape it slightly farther back, like I did here. Tape the cheek piece on both sides and on the top and bottom. Line the two tops of the pieces up and tape them together. Trim the excess part of the cheek that hangs off so it's tapered to the base. Now that I have both cheeks and muzzle done, I usually take the cutout eye from earlier and make a small eye blank. You don't have to start with this base, but then I'll usually cut a small strip of paper and tape it around the eye blank like I'm doing here. This is so you have your 3D follow me eyes outlined so you can build them into the base instead of just putting them on top, so that they're not protruding into the inside and making your head smaller and more uncomfortable. For Jay's head base, instead of doing the blank eye back here, I just taped the strip around his muzzle and eye area. I'll show a picture here. Then I insert this into the eye. So this will be, like I said earlier, the eye base that you tape all your strips off of. This will be like your starting point. I find this helps make my base really cohesive and make it look rounder. So I push this in and I tape it onto the base. You're going to want to tape it on at about a 45-ish degree angle, so it's not too far to the side or too far to the middle, because you don't want the eyes to be fully facing forward, or else like the follow me eyes will look weird, and you don't want them to be too far back as well. So now I've pre-cut tons of thin strips out of my cardstock from before, and this is what I'm going to use to start shaping the base. As you can see, I have like a ton of them, and you're going to need a lot if you want your base to be super round. I usually start at the muzzle area, and you're going to be starting to tape these strips and fill in the gaps in the base like so. This is to round out your base. It's kind of hard to explain, but you're going to be making like a cage around the base, and this is what you'll be putting your tape, or this is what you'll be putting your duct tape over later. So as you can see, I'm starting down the middle. This will be like my middle section, and I'm doing the muzzle first. Because the strips are thin and round, if you tape them in the right spots, they will, like, I don't know how to explain it, they will go up a bit, as you can see here. You don't want them to follow directly along the base. You want them to pop up and make a kind of rounder shape. So I'm going to do this with my entire head. I'm going to go around the eyes, and I'm going to finish around the muzzle. This will all make your base round. So you're going to fill in all the gaps, and you're going to try and make it as round as you can. And I like to build out the muzzle a little bit, round out those corners. You'll see more as I go on with the stripping. I literally don't know what else to call it, but it's so weird to call it stripping, but like I feel like that's what you should call it, but also like there's another meaning behind that. So yeah, let me know what else I should call this process, but you're gonna keep doing this for the entire base, like I said earlier, and so I'll show a time lapse of me doing this. It can take a while, so have patience. Use small strips. I see people use a lot of larger strips, and yeah, let's get to that. So now I'm going to start putting the duct tape onto my base. I have a better, like, more tip fill tutorial, like shorter tutorial for this on my TikTok. I might have posted it on my YouTube, can't remember. But to start taping the base, you're just going to cut off a piece of duct tape and lightly lay it onto the base. Do not press it down and like push it onto the base. Just lightly lay it over so it goes over all the strips and there's no wrinkles and it doesn't go in between the strips. Keep repeating this process and layer the strips over each other. Make sure there's no gaps in them and make sure your base is strong. That's probably all the tips I have for the taping process, and I'll switch it to another time lapse now, and if I have anything to add, I'll add more. So now that I'm done taping, I'm gonna cut out the eye blanks from before. Also, if you haven't done it yet, I would recommend cutting out the entrance to the muzzle just right in this area because you want the muzzle to be open so you can breathe out of it later. So now I'm going to start drawing with a Sharpie of where I want my mouth to be. I like to draw out the nose first and then draw the mouth so that you don't make the mouth too big or make the mouth into the area where you want to put the nose, etc. I try to find the middle of the base and then start marking or drawing those out with a Sharpie. It might be a little bit hard to make this even, but try and make it as even and symmetrical as you can. This is something I actually kind of struggle with, but it just takes practice and time. But yeah. Once you're finished doing that, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife or box cutter or scissors or whatever you have and just start slicing and dicing the mouth open, bro. Cut that out. You want space to breathe through your head. Don't leave the mouth closed. That's one of my biggest tips. Do not leave the mouth closed on your paper fursuit. It's okay if the muzzle folds a bit as you're cutting it. Just slice and dice that crap. Get that mouth out of here. This is probably my least favorite part of making a paper fursuit because if your scissors aren't very sharp, this is gonna take some force, bro. Like, layers of duct tape and paper and cardstock are not easy to cut through, and it usually takes me a hot minute. So just try your best, try and make it even. But yeah, now I have the mouth cut out and that's finally over with. Since the mouth at this point is going to be flat, you want to tape more pieces of duct tape over it to round out more. You don't want that sharp edge of the mouth. You want it to be a bit rounder, especially the bottom muzzle portion. So now we've officially made it to the second part of the tutorial. Let's go. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to fur your paper fursuit. If you couldn't tell already, this is actually Jay's base, and yeah, I'm going to be showing you guys all the furring steps on him instead because I never finished on spot. So to start off furring the base, I usually use some sort of light source like a lamp, or your phone flashlight would work too, and put the light inside the base so it shines through the eyes. Then I'm going to grab a blank sheet of cardstock of what you want your base color to be, and I'm going to push it down into the muzzle. Then I'm going to take a pencil and start tracing over the area that the light shines through so that this piece of paper will go around the eyes and the forehead. So I'm basically going to have like a shape like this for my forehead area. I'm going to start cutting those eye pieces out from the edge of the base up to the top, and I'm going to round out the top so it creates kind of like a forehead shape after I finish cutting out the eyes. So when I'm making pieces like this that will go on the base, I always round out the corners. This is so there's no edges sticking up, because if you have a corner, then it's easier to get flipped up if you don't tape it down, and also I just like the rounder look. Then I'm going to push this onto the muzzle of the base and tape it down on the corners of the eyes. This is the piece I always start with, and then you're going to start taping up to the forehead area. So to make this piece actually fit the roundness of the head, I'm going to cut tiny slits in the sides and in the forehead area. So now I'm going to take pieces of tape and start taping these down so they fit the roundness of the base. If there's any that you can pull, I'd recommend doing that so that they lay flat. After I tape the ends of these strips, I'm going to tape the sides so that the edges aren't sticking up like here. And I'm gonna do the same exact thing for the other side of the forehead as well. Now I'm gonna do this for the entire rest of the base. Usually my process goes, tape it down with a small piece of Scotch tape first, and then cut slits, and then tape the slits down. Then you can either go over those slits with extra pieces of tape or leave them how they are. I'm gonna get started and do this with the rest of my base. And you can also add your markings and designs on as you go. Usually I wait until I finish the first base color. So now, after I have most of the head base covered, I'm gonna move on to the nose. I've started making my noses 3D. This is optional. You can just draw out a nose and tape it on, but I personally like the style of the 3D nose, so I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. I'm gonna take a scrap piece of paper and just measure where the nose area is, because you don't want your nose to be too big or too small. I think the area for my nose on this head base was like 2.5 to 3 inches. So I just went ahead and transferred this onto my paper, and then I folded my paper in half and then drew the shape of my nose. This is so your nose will be symmetrical and you don't have to worry about it being uneven or anything later on. So for some reason I decided to move my camera angle out of frame so you can't even see what I'm doing, but basically I just used the shape from earlier, the symmetrical one, and then traced it onto my yellow piece of paper because that's the color of my nose, and then I drew all the nose shading and everything, but you can't even see me doing that, so I don't know what I was doing with this camera angle. But yeah, I drew all that. This is kind of what it looked like with the shading and everything, the first nose piece at least. I also cut out my nostrils for the nose. Yeah, still out of frame, by the way. Love my life. So then I took my template from earlier and traced around it, but I did not trace around the nostrils. I just left those out because you want the back of the nose, like the inside of the nose, to not have the nostrils out, if you know what I mean. You'll see later. Okay, goody gracious, finally fixed the freaking camera angle. But yeah, now that I have my two pieces of my nose, my back piece, and then my front piece with the nostrils cut out, I'm just gonna take a couple strips of paper and tape them around the nose and tape the two pieces together. I make sure to use a ruler for the strip because if the strip is not even, it can really mess up your nose. So yeah, just make sure it's straight. I apologize for a lot of me doing this being out of frame, but you're pretty much just going to tape the strip from before around the nose and Don't tape it on the nostril part. Cut out a smaller strip and then tape it on like I'm doing here, because you want to leave the space open for the nostrils. It's a pickable 3D nose for a reason. Right now, I'm just doing some extra additional shading to my nose. Yeah, I just added some lighter yellow onto it, not too much. I wanted his nose to be a gradient, so. Now I'm gonna start securing my nose to the base. Since my base is round and my nose is flat, this can be tricky, but I pretty much just bend it and put it into shape. I find that's helpful to start taping it at the nostrils first and then tape around the edges. This way you can have a secure fit before you tape anything else. Then I'm going to take another piece of paper and trace the shape. This is so it covers up the gap of the nose and makes it look like it's actually bending onto the muzzle. Now I'm going to start making the eyes of my paper fursuit. So to do this, to get the general eye shape, I trace the inside of the eye shape around this piece of paper that I just stuck into the base. And then I'm going to cut this shape out so I have the general shape of the eye. I make sure to mark these so I don't get them mixed up. I usually mark it LE for left eye or RE for right eye. Also make sure that the eye shape fits into the actual eye hole. If it doesn't fit, you're going to want to adjust it, cut it smaller, or retrace it. Now taking the same piece, I'm going to make a second eye piece. This will be where the actual coloring, your actual eye part goes. The other piece is just a template that you can use later for eyelids and stuff like that. Again, my camera angle is bad, so it's kind of hard to see, but if you can see, I'm starting to draw the shape of my general iris. This will be the spot we're going to see out of. So you're going to want to make it close to the center of the eye, but you don't want it to be too close so that it looks cross-eyed. I usually do it about in the middle, just a little bit more to the right. Now I'm going to cut the center iris out. This will be the part you see out of, so you're going to want to cut it out. I usually use my box cutter first to cut this small slit, and then I go in with my scissors and cut it carefully. Make sure you don't rip it or anything, but yeah. Now I'm gonna start coloring this piece. I just color around the rim so that he has the general eye color. The side of his eye is orange because he has two different colored eyes, so. So now I'm going to take a piece of packing tape, and I'm gonna tape it over this area of the eye. Make sure it fills up the whole hole, and make sure that the back of the tape doesn't stick to anything. You want to make this really clear because this is what you're going to be seeing out of. You're also going to put another piece of packing tape on the other side. Try to make sure that there's no bubbles in it. If I do get major bubbles though, I will take a tack or whatever and I will poke those out and continue rubbing the pieces of tape together. So yeah, I just rub those together, make sure that they're sticking together, and try to make sure there's not a lot of bubbles, and then I trim the extra tape off. Then I'm going to take one of the darkest colors of my alcohol markers and start coloring over this iris area. Layer it over. You want to layer it. I usually layer the markers about 1 to 2 times, and every time you layer, make sure you put another piece of packing tape over it. Do not do it more than this because it will make it harder to see out of. Just do 1 or 2 times. That what works the best with me, so you still have a darker iris, but you can still see out of it. If you really want to have clear vision, I'd recommend doing a completely black iris because that's a lot easier to see out of. If you use a lighter color like light blue, then it's going to be harder to see out of. Also, the last time after you layer, put another piece of tape over the alcohol markers. Do not color over this piece, but this is just to make sure that the marker doesn't rub off or fade. Next, I'm going to laminate my entire eye in packaging tape. This is really important because you don't want the alcohol marker fading. I learned this because my alcohol marker will always fade on the inside of the eyes. This is because you breathing in it, it fades the alcohol marker, and also sun will fade it. So you just want it to be extra protected is what I'm saying. Now I'm going to take my ruler and do the same exact thing I did with the nose by taping a thin strip around the entire eyeball. This should be the same width as the inside of the eyes, or where the eyes go in, so that they'll fit into the base when we tape them inside. So now it should look something like this, and it should have that kind of follow me effect that you want for the eyes I make. Now I'm literally just going to shove this into the base. It should be a pretty much exact fit. It might be a little bit tricky. You might have to trim some things, push it around, adjust it, but it should literally just fit exactly into the base. You also should tape the eye to the outside of the base so nobody can punch your eye sockets out while you're wearing it. That would be kind of interesting if you were at a con and somebody tapped your eye and it fell out. I know some regular fursuits have that. If you want to have that, I guess you could for a paper fursuit, but I usually tape them in. Then I literally just repeat the same exact process for the right eye because they're literally the same, except my right eye for J is blue. So next we're going to be moving on to the ears. Ignore how I'm using Bubblegum's ear footage for this. I'm just too lazy to edit a completely new ear tutorial. So you're just going to trace out the shape of your ear. Don't mind any text on screen, it's for the old tutorial, but I'm using super thick cardstock called Bristol board for the main base of my ear. And you want to give it a kind of curved base so you'll be able to fit it on the head. And you can trim this as well if it doesn't fit perfectly. I'm just going to test tape this on to make sure it fits, make sure I have a good size and whatnot. I kept this shape for my ear and it worked really well for me. So next I'm just going to trace on the back of my ear. Jay's ears were a lot more simpler because he only had 1 color for the back of his ear. Bubblegum had 6 colors for his trans flag. So yeah, you literally just trace out and keep taping on. Then you're going to pick the base color for the inside of the ear and tape this on to the front of the piece. So it should be covering the white part. And the front of Bubblegum's ear was pink, so that's the color I made it. And yeah, you literally just repeat this process, keep tracing and taping on the next pieces of paper. Now for the outside of the ear, you're going to do the same exact thing, but you're going to have an opening for the ear. So you'll have the outside with the opening, the inside, and then the back of the ear. For this, I just trace the opening like so, and I cut it out. So you'll have the two sides and then the opening, and this will be taped on to the other part of the ear. This is what it looks like after I finish putting all the markings on. Yeah, so you should have that opening like I mentioned earlier, and then the outside part. So now I'm going to take my head and start taping on this part of the ear, kind of like the template we made earlier. And first I secure it with Scotch tape. Make sure it's well on there and it's the shape you want. We're going to tape over it with duct tape later, so don't worry if it's not secure enough. But yeah, we're pretty much just going to do that. Don't mind me adjusting my lamp. But next we're going to take this piece from earlier and start taping it on to the back. I start at the top because you're going to want to put the ends closer to the forward of the base so it makes a more 3D shape. And if this part is too short, you might have to add some extra cardstock to it like I did here. Just make sure it's fully taped together, and it should be pretty smooth once you cut it and shape it to the right spots. And I'm going to slightly pull the ear forward when I do this because you want to have that opening be somewhat large, and yeah. So after you're done with this, I usually like to tape the ear onto the head further with duct tape that matches the color. This just really secures your ear onto your base and makes sure it's not coming off anytime soon. Now for the hair on my paper fursuit, you're literally just gonna trace the section of a shape of a piece of hair you want, and you're gonna cut it out and pretty much just tape it on the base. For Jay's head, I added some extra shading to the hair, and it kind of took me a long time to tape on and cut out every individual piece, but trust me, it's worth it if you want really detailed hair. If you don't, you could do something like my friend Mask, who makes their hair all in like 1 or 3 pieces, and I'll show a screenshot of that here, and I'll link them in the description of this video. So I'm just going to start cutting out, then taping on all my individual pieces of hair. Yeah, like I mentioned, this takes a while, but I swear it's worth it.
Here's a photo of me doing that before I did the shading, just to test out where I wanted them to be. And now, you should be pretty much done with your paper fursuit head. I don't have much else to say, so I'll get to the official outro now. But here's a full walkthrough of Jay. I just finished him very recently, so yeah, thank you for watching this tutorial. Let's get to the outro.
Hi guys, thank you so much for watching this fully updated tutorial. I hope it was really helpful for you, and if you have any more questions, you can ask me in the comments of this video. Feel free to leave a like and maybe subscribe. I'm really hoping this tutorial gets as much attention as the last one, because I don't want people to be using that old crappy tutorial anymore. But I also don't want to private it or anything, because I feel like it should be up for posterity reasons. Also, it's still getting traction for some reason, so. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope you thought that this was helpful and that it helped you further under your understanding of paper fursuits. Like I said, if you have any more questions, and thank you so much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you in, like, maybe the next video I post in, like, 8 months. So, bye-bye!